Hello, y'all. Can you hear and see? Thank you, Layla. That's extra credit. Nope, too late for the extra credit. Sorry, guys. Sure, I'll give you like a tenth of a point, as if you need it. Yeah, I'll explain anything, y'all. You never have to ask. I love answering questions. I will not explain everything. I do not claim to know the meaning of life. I only claim to know Algebra 2. But my personal view is that existence is inconsequential. Oh, you're fine. You're not late. I'm still taking attendance. Number 3, number 7. Ten, 12, 3, 7, 10, 12. 11. Oh my gosh. I might have to not do some of these. We'll see. We'll see. See what I can do. Is Capel not here? Oh goodness. 3 and 12. Alright, alright. I might have to cut out some of y'all's questions. I'm sorry. I spoke too soon saying I would answer anything. But let's see. Let's see. I'll try and do what I can. I saw 3, 12, 11. If your question doesn't get answered, like today or by the end of class, just let me know after class and I'll help you out. I will totally help you out. 10, 12, 11. Oh wait, this is only 4 questions. It's just people asking for the same question. Okay. Yeah, I can definitely do these. No problem. I might have to breeze through them, but that's fine. Let's see. Well, that's not it. Happy Friday, by the way. No school tomorrow. Oh, are they different? Well, that's probably why y'all are asking for it. Goodness. Let me check my worksheet really quick. Did I reorder them? Because I wrote the key before I wrote the worksheet. Capel's finally here. Yeah. Number 3 should be 221. If you got 221 for 3, that's the correct answer. 3 and 12 are different. Is 12 different? Oh, I just wrote the sign wrong. So 12 should be... 12 is 0. Yeah, 12 is 0. Sorry, y'all. I just wrote the sign wrong on both of those problems. 221 and 0. Okay. Thank you. Excellent. It's typos. So with those corrections, do we still want to see 221 and 12? Sorry, 3 and 12. 3 is 221, 12 is 0. Do we still want to see them? I can show you. Or do we just want to see 11 and the other one? 11 and 10. So for now I'm going to scratch out 3 and 12 unless you ask for them again. So if you want them, go ahead and ask for them again. So let's take a look at 10. 6 plus root 3y plus 4. Is less than 6. Less than 6. Alright. Maybe my handwriting will get better. Let's see. So let's isolate the square root, subtract 6, so you get less than 0. Square both sides. 3y plus 4 less than 0. 3y less than negative 4. Y less than negative 4/3. So we get one inequality this way. And we will have a second inequality. You know what? Isn't that the... No, it's not. It's not. So we get 3y plus 4 has to be greater than or equal to 0. So 3y greater than or equal to negative 4. Y greater than or equal to negative 4/3. I could graph these, but it's pretty apparent that no number is both less than negative 4/3 and greater than or equal to negative 4/3. Anything that satisfies one inequality won't satisfy the other, and that's how we get no solution here. Is that good for number 10? If you do graph these, basically you get this. And there's nothing in common between these guys. Not romantically compatible, unfortunately. Alright, let's take a look at number 11. Root d plus 3 plus root d plus 7. Greater than 4. So I want to isolate one of these square roots. It doesn't matter which one I do. I'm just going to go ahead and isolate. It literally doesn't matter. I'm going to isolate this one by subtracting this guy. So I get root d plus 3 greater than 4 minus square root d plus 7. So as it sits in the beginning, you are certainly welcome to go ahead and square it, but it's really not going to be worth your time. Like, that's a viable way to go about it, but it's going to take 2 or 3 times as long. So it is always best to isolate one of these guys if you can. So that's the strat. Square both sides. On the left side I get d plus 3 greater than, if I FOIL, I get 16 minus 8 root d plus 7 plus d plus 7. So these d's go away, and I am left with, whoa, where'd this come from? So these d's go away, and I am left with 16 plus 7 is 23, 3 greater than 23 minus 8 root d plus 7, subtract 23, so I get negative 20 greater than negative 8 root d plus 7. So I'll divide by negative 8. I get 20/8. I'll show you here in a second. 20/8 greater than... I divided by a negative, so doesn't that need to flip? That probably caught a couple of you guys. So when you square this, you have to FOIL it. So first gives 16, outside gives negative 4 roots, and inside gives negative 4 roots, so that's how we get negative 8 roots. Does that answer your question? This is a monomial. This is a binomial. Does that answer your question? Cool, wonderful. I will square... I guess I'll go ahead and simplify 20/8. doesn't really matter. 28 would be 5 halves. Yeah, 5 halves. So 5 halves squared less than d plus 7. So d plus 7 is greater than 25 fourths. So I will subtract 7, so minus 28 fourths. So d greater than negative 3 fourths. So that's how we get that inequality. Can I stop there, or would you like to see the rest? Kevin. I think this is Kevin's question. Or anybody else, right? This problem actually has 3 inequalities, but it turns out that this one dominates, right? Would you like to see that, or is this sufficient? And this is the hard one, algebraically, to get. The other two, very easy. Okay, wonderful. Let's get into it. Alright, so before we do our lesson today, I want to review quickly the distance formula, which I'm sure we all remember, or if we don't remember, we won't be surprised. Okay, so distance formula. We have 2 points floating in space. I'll go ahead and call this one x1, comma y1, and I will call this other one x2, comma y2. How do you find the distance between, what color do I want? Goodness, how do you find the distance between these 2 points? That's the question here. Okay, well, usually, sometimes I forget the formula. Actually, that's a lie. By now, I've used it enough that I literally just have it memorized. But when I was a student, I would forget the formula. And I'll show you where the formula comes from. So what you do is you make a triangle. Pardon my terrible triangle. That's fine. And we can use Pythagorean theorem here. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. We just have to find, because c is the distance that we're actually looking for. C is distance. We just have to find an expression for a and b. So we're using the Pythagorean theorem here. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. We just need an expression for a and b. So a is the change along the x-coordinates. So a is actually going to be x-coordinate 2 minus x-coordinate 1. So a equals x2 minus x1. And b is the change along the y-coordinates. It's the vertical change. So it's going to be y2 minus y1. Are we all happy with the expressions for a and b here? A is the horizontal change, x2 minus x1, and b is the vertical change, y2 minus y1. So I'm just going to substitute into here. We want c, we want distance. So a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So I get x2 minus x1 squared, that's a squared, plus b squared. So y2 minus y1 squared equals d squared. I write d for distance. D means distance. So if I actually want distance, I get d equals square root x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. Any questions here about the distance formula? So distance formula is just Pythagorean theorem in coordinate space. So, Mesa, do you have any questions about this line? This is Pythagorean theorem where one leg is the difference in the x-coordinates and the other leg is the difference in the y-coordinates. We just drew our triangle. So the length of this bottom leg of the triangle is the difference between the x-coordinates, and the length of the right leg of the triangle is the difference in the y-coordinates. And even if you're So, I mean, you're perfectly welcome to memorize the distance formula, right? So that's fine. I'm just reminding you where it comes from. So even if this makes you a little queasy, just remember you can memorize that. Okay. So, yeah, exactly. Cool. So let's talk about, well, why would we need the distance circles? Well, I just said it. Why would we need the distance formula? It's for circles. Finally, we can do something at least mildly interesting. So, we know that a circle is the set of all points equidistant from an origin, from the center of the circle. So if I take all the points that are equidistant, and that's a certain radius, equidistant from the center, we get a circle. And mine's a little imperfect, but don't body shame my circle. So we say all set of all points equidistant from the center. This won't be tested or anything, we're just talking about what a circle is. And so I'm going to go ahead and assign arbitrary coordinates to the center. H, K. You've seen this before with vertex form. Now, we know that the point H, K is always our distance away from the general points X and Y. So knowing this picture in conjunction with the description of what exactly a circle is, we can derive the general formula of a circle. So in other words, the distance between these 2 points is always r. So let's just substitute this idea into the distance formula. So the distance we're specifically talking about is r. R is always the distance between these 2 points. And what's the 2 points we're talking about? Remember, the distance formula is the difference in x coordinates squared plus the difference in y coordinates squared. So the difference in x coordinates will be x minus h. And the difference in y coordinates will be y minus k. So we can label that even. So this is the equation of a circle given radius and the coordinates of the center h, k. Do you have any questions about this circle formula? Okay. So let's try writing the equation of a circle given the radius and its center. So let's see. Write the equation of the circle with radius, it doesn't matter, I'm just going to say radius 3 centered at 4, -7. I just made up 3 numbers, no big deal. So this is x, y, right? X, y. This is also, in terms of the formula, h, k. If you ever forget which one comes first, notice they're both alphabetical order. So that's very convenient. Okay, so the radius is 3. So I'll write down our circle formula from earlier. And the circle formula is that, and look, actually, this is correct, but usually instead it is expressed as r squared equals the stuff underneath. And so let me go ahead and, does that make sense? I just squared both sides. Oh no. Cool. This will take a minute. That's fine. So r squared equals the sum of the squares of the other two legs. Cool, wonderful. So let's bring that same guy down here. We have r squared x minus h squared plus y minus k squared. So what's r? Well, radius is 3. So r squared, we get 3 squared equals x minus h. What's the x coordinate of the center? 4. So x minus 4 squared plus y minus k. What's the y coordinate of the center? 7. Y minus negative 7 becomes y plus 7. It's just like point slope formula. It's backwards, right? So if it's negative, it's going to be plus, and if it's positive, it's going to be minus. So only thing left here to do is to square the 3. So I get 9 equals x minus 4 squared plus y plus 7 squared. So here is the equation of our circle. And also, notice the x-coordinate goes with the x and the y-coordinate goes with the y. Any questions on this? I'll go ahead and give you a practice problem. I'd like you to do the same exact thing for radius equals 11 and center at, I'll answer your question here in a second, Capel, centered at 6 comma negative 5. So go ahead and do this, shouldn't take 20 seconds. You can expand Capel, but this, in this form, is actually more informative because see, it readily tells you where the center is. If you expand it, you don't know exactly where the center is, and we're actually going to talk about that later. We're going to see, we're going to see it in the expanded form and talk about how to condense it actually into standard form of a circle so that it's more informative, so that we actually know where it is. It's like taking, if you remember, the general form of a polynomial is not informative about where the vertex is. You have to do like negative b over 2a. But you can put it in vertex form, and that's more helpful. So Sophia, sorry about that, but you should, Sophia, you can probably follow what's on screen right now, but also, thankfully, we have the recording. So Sophia, the gist of everything that happened is, here's the equation for a circle. You just substitute these numbers in. So this would be h, and this would be k. I'll give you a link, Henry. It's also on the portal. Alright, y'all should be at least mostly done with the practice problem, so let's talk about it. So if r equals 11, I have r squared, well that's 121, equals x minus h, x minus 6 squared, plus y minus k, so y plus 5 squared. Any questions about this? Cool. Let's move on. What do I have next? And so opposite, you may see a question like, let's see, what color do I want? You may see a question with the formula given asking you to find center and radius. So let's say 20 equals x minus 3 squared plus y plus 1 squared. So here, the radius squared is 20. I'll use some different colors here. And then the center is 3 comma negative 1. Any questions about this? I was going to do a practice problem on this, but I think it's pretty straightforward. And here's r squared. We actually want r though. So r, we're pirates today. R is the square root of 20. We can simplify that, can't we? Isn't that 2 root 5? So sometimes it'll be something nice like square root of 49, which would be 7. It looks like square root of 99. And sometimes it will be something that you actually have to simplify proper. Okay. Let's graph a circle. So let's say we have 16 equals x plus 2 squared plus y plus 3 squared. So the way I would like y'all to graph a circle is to first determine the center. Can't control my hands at all today, y'all. First, determine the center and then graph it. So let's go ahead and do that. I will draw my axes in white. So our center would be -2 comma -3. Let me graph it. So I'll go 2 units to the left, 3 units up. So here is my center. And then secondly, we will go radius units up, down, left, and right. Oh, thanks, it is -3, isn't it? Yeah, I wrote it right, I just didn't graph it right. So -2 comma -3. So what's r units? Well, r squared is 16, so r must equal 4. So I'm going to go 4 units left, right, up, and down from my center. So if I go 4 units up, that's 1, 2, 3, 4. If I go 4 units right, that's 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 units down, 1, 2, 3, 4. And 4 units left, 1, 2, 3, 4. On the homework that you can print out, there will actually be grids, at least. You're welcome to freehand it on paper, but it usually takes more work. So if you have a printer, I would suggest doing that. And then just do your best to draw a circle-like thing between these 4 points. And that's pretty good for me, even though it looks like a really bad egg, honestly. Okay, any questions about graphing a circle here? So notice, this is 4 units up and down, and then 4 units left and right. Okay, cool. Why don't y'all take a 2-minute break and be back here at 1:12. No. I just decided to write this while we were taking a break. Alright, hopefully most of you are back by now. Also, I want to thank you for always putting up with my terrible handwriting. At least to be honest, it's a common theme between math teachers and professors. So, we spend more time writing math than writing words. Okay, so let's, so earlier we did determine center and radius from standard form of a circle, but what if we don't have that? So say we have, what do I want? X squared plus y squared plus 4x minus 10y plus minus 7 equals 0. Okay, so what do I want to say? First of all, what's this supposed to look like? Well, it's supposed to look like this, right? R squared equals x minus h squared plus y minus k squared. Okay. So the question is, how do I get some numbers just floating in space to look like this? Well, haven't we done that a trillion times? Isn't that completing the square? Maybe it's something you thought we would never do again, but we are, right? So the idea here is to complete the square on the x's and we'll get something like that, and then to complete the square on the y's and we'll get something like that. Henry says, oh no. Okay, so let's write that down. We want to complete the square on the x's and y's. So I'm going to rearrange this to be x squared plus 4x. I'm going to put the x's and y's together. X squared plus 4x plus y squared minus 10y minus 7 equals 0. Will the 7 apply to both equations? Does the 7 have an x or a y? It's going to be alone for now. So I've put the x's and the y's together. They have reunited. And now we just need to complete the square on the x's and the y's. And maybe I might as well move the 7 over. You don't have to, but I'm just going to go ahead and show it to you this way because I think it will be easier. So go ahead and move the 7 over 2. So to complete the square on the x's, I need to take this 4, divide by 2 to get 2, and then square it, if you remember how to complete the square. So you take the middle term, divide by 2, you get 2, and square it, and add it in, and you get plus 4. For the y's, I'm going to take negative 10, divide by 2, I get negative 5. Square it, and you get plus 25. The nature of completing the square, these numbers that you add in are always square numbers, so they're going to be positive, and always adding. And so whatever we did to this left side, we better counteract it on the other side. So I have 7 from earlier, and I added 4 and 25 from earlier, so I need to add 4 and 25 now. So this 4 completes the x's, and I did it over there as well, and this 25 completes the square on the y's, so I did it over there. And then we can finally factor these guys. So this will be x plus 2 squared. Remember, this will always be the same sign as that sign and half of that term. So we get y minus half of 10 is 5 squared equals 7 plus 4 is 11 plus 25 is 36. So now we're actually in standard form like we would actually like to be. So everything is well and good. We just need to find the center and the radius. Well, the center, the x-coordinate will be negative 2, comma, y-coordinate 5, and the radius will be square root 36, which is 6. So we're done. Any questions on completing the square? I know it's been a while for some of us. Would we have to graph this? I mean, we did it earlier, didn't we? Let's see. But it's pretty easy to graph, right? It's really not too bad. I'll ask you to graph a couple, but it's not too bad. Alright, so with what I just did, I would like you to, and I'll try to leave most of this problem visible. I guess I'll zoom out. That's what I'll do. So here's the problem we just did. And it's going to be kind of small, but I would like you to do a board work on x squared. Let me write in a more visible color since we're all the way out here. So x squared plus y squared minus 8x plus 12y minus 12 equals 0. So please find the center and radius of this circle. And to do that, you'll have to complete the square on the x's and the y's. Also, whenever we have graphing, I usually like to have a worksheet so y'all can have the grid. Because even as bad as my graphs are, usually the students are even less caring, so to say. Anybody still working? Are most of us done? Can you let me know if you are either done or still working? Done. Done. Okay, sounds good to me. So let's go ahead and do this. I'm not even going to bother to rearrange these, but if I want to complete the square on the x's, I need to add 16, x squared minus 8x plus let's see. (16). Then if I want to complete the square on the y's, I would get y squared plus 12y plus 36 equals 12 plus 16 plus 36. I need to counteract what I just did. So when I factor on the left side, I get x minus 4 squared plus y plus 6 squared equals 12 plus 16 is 18 plus 36 is 54. Is that correct? No, it should be 64. It's 28 plus 36. So my center here is 4 comma negative 6. And our radius is square root 64 or 8. Any questions here, y'all? Cool, excellent. We have one more variety of these kind of problems. So let me go ahead and save this sheet. Today is gold, the 9th. Cool. So, what? New. Okay. So, what do we say? Write an equation, or rather, write the equation if it has a diameter with endpoints (7, 6) and (-1, (-8). Okay, what's even going on? Well, let's draw a picture and kind of think about it. So, I'm just going to roughly draw, so this is 7, 6 and (-1, (-8). And this is one of the diameters of this circle, meaning that this completely spans across the circle, and the rest of the circle is going to be 2 semicircles around this guy. Oh my goodness, that is atrocious. Okay, so in order to write the equation, what do we need? Well, we need the radius and the center. How do we find, well, first of all, wouldn't we need the center to find the radius? The answer actually is no, but we'll talk about that. So, which one do we want to find first? It doesn't really matter. I guess I'll go ahead and find the radius. I'm going to show you how we can find it without getting the center first, because actually, this is usually going to be the better idea anyway, and I'll explain why as well. Okay, so I have 2 points of the diameter. I can find the distance between those 2 points, and that would give me the length of the diameter. So I can find the length of the diameter. Now, how does the radius relate to the diameter? Well, the radius is just half of the diameter. So if I can find the length of the diameter, so this entire guy, I can just divide by 2 to get my radius. So let's find the length of the diameter. So, in order to find the length of the diameter, I'm just going to need to use the distance formula on these 2 points. No problem. So I get distance, or diameter length, equals square root difference in the x-coordinates, so 7 minus (-1) squared, plus difference in the y-coordinates, 6 minus negative 8 squared. Notice, in both of these groups, the 7 and the 6 came first because they belong to the same point. So I can't switch it around, but it doesn't matter which point you call it. Instead of doing 7 minus negative 1, I could have done negative 1 minus 7. But then I would have to also switch these. So whichever order they come in, they better belong to the same point, in other words. So here we get distance equals square root 7 plus 1, that's 8 squared, 64, plus 6 plus 8 squared, that's 14 squared, plus 196. Yeah, that's correct. So 64 plus 196 is 260. The diameter is square root 260. I'm not sure what 260 is going to simplify into. I know that it's 2 times 130. That's 2 times 65. Well, that's the answer right there. So that would be 4 root 65. Sorry, square root 4 times 65. Right, 4 times 65 is 260. So square root 4, I get 2 root 65. Okay, well, if the diameter is 2 root 65, radius is the diameter divided by 2 equals 1 root 65. So that's what we wanted, was the radius. The reason it's usually better this way is because you'll be given integer values for these points, but the center could be fraction and decimals, and you really don't want to plug those in to the distance formula. So I would usually recommend finding the diameter and just dividing by 2. So we have the radius. So find the length of the diameter and then divide by 2. And then now we just have to find the center. Okay, well, given 2 points, how do we find the center? Well, we have the distance formula. We also have the midpoint formula. And if you don't recall, the midpoint formula is just x1 plus x2 divide by 2, comma, y1 plus y2 divide by 2. It's just averaging individually the x-coordinates and the y-coordinates. So the x-coordinate of the midpoint is the average of the x-coordinates, and the y-coordinate of the midpoint is the average of the y-coordinates. So again, if you don't like remembering how or why it is like that, you can also just rote memorize. So and our 2 points are -1, -8, and 7, 6. So if I get x1 plus x2, that's 7 plus -1 divided by 2, and y1 plus y2, I get 6 plus -8 divided by 2. So I get -6 halves, that's -3, and then -2 halves, that's -1. So here's my center. Any questions on finding the center or the radius? +3. Yes, thank you. Sometimes I get too excited, I think. Okay. Well, that's it all about circles. So now you know everything about circles, for the most part. Interestingly, 3 points define a circle, so we could do something like, given these 3 points, find the circle that goes through them, and you'd have to solve a system of 3 equations, which is not too hard, but it is a lot of work, and so y'all won't have those, but I just figured I would mention it because I think it's pretty cool. Okay, with that being said, I'm going to put the worksheet up on the portal. It's not too long. I think it's just 12 questions, and some of them are really fast. And that's the homework. There will also be a quiz over the weekend on inequalities and equations, what we just went over. So the quiz is radical equations / inequalities. It'll probably just be 2 or 3 questions. So I'll put that up to later, and then I'll also put the homework up. And with that being said, have a great no school day tomorrow and a beautiful weekend. And I think the weather's pretty nice today, so enjoy that too. All right, thank you so much, y'all, and peace.